The wind was bitter, and the sky bruised with dusk, but the donkey walked alone. His steps were slow, heavy with silence, yet each one echoed a memory too sacred to speak aloud. It wasn't just any beast of burden. It was the last to carry what mattered. Not just the weight on his back, but the promise of a fallen master. Long ago, in the misty highlands where pilgrims walked barefoot for blessings, there was a man who made this journey every winter. With him always was the same donkey gray, scarred, eyes deep as still water. They didn't need ropes or commands. The man would hum a tune, and the donkey would follow paths no map remembered. But this year, just 3 days into the sacred climb, the master's breath gave out. Cold took him gently, as if the mountain itself whispered it was time. There were no witnesses, it's just wind, frost, and the donkey standing over him, unmoving.
Dawn?
The donkey didn't flee. He didn't cry out, simply knelt beside the body, waited, and when the sun touched the frozen trail, he stood on, continued walking. He walked across broken bridges, where the water churned dark and cold beneath the ice. He walked through ravines, thorny and silent, where the very stones seemed to huddle from the wind. He passed shrines where prayers hung frozen and ancient carved stones that marked stories long turned to dust. He walked. People along the route watched in quiet disbelief. "It's Rayhan's donkey," one whispered. But where is Rayhan? No one stopped him. No one dared. Some said the donkey had memorized the way. Others believed he was being led by the spirit of the one he lost. But in truth, it was neither. The donkey walked not by sight, not by memory, but by bond. A bond forged in rain, heat, hunger, and prayer. A bond that even death couldn't untie. By the time he reached the peak where the master would always light a candle, Donkey stood still, looking at the small altar. His breath steamed in the air, stayed there till nightfall, and before dawn he turned back, alone once again. Each step he took was a beat of loss, echoing in the hollows of the mountains. Each bend in the trail, a new ache, twisting in the silence of his heart. Yet he kept going, drawn by an invisible string to a place he'd been countless times before. Years went by like seasons, turning the leaves to gold and the donkey's fur to ash. But every winter, when the frost claimed the valley, he started his walk. It became a ritual as old as the mountains themselves. A solemn dance between life and death, a testament to a bond that defied understanding. Villagers say he returned every year after that. On the same day, walked the same trail, never stopping, never straying. His body grew older, weaker, but his steps stayed true. They say a year came when he didn't return, and near the altar, they found his body curled beneath the stone cross, facing the sunrise, still and silent but free. In a world where loyalty is often bought, this donkey proved something different. He showed us that memory lives beyond words, and devotion doesn't need a voice. He didn't follow orders. He followed love. And in doing so, he walked a forgotten path into legend. If these echoes touched something in you, subscribe, like, and comment on The Forgotten Path, where every footstep tells the story of those the world tried to forget. Now let's continue with another story from The Forgotten Path. The wind howled down from the gray peaks, whipping snow into frenzies. Travelers hurried along the King's Road, seeking shelter in the warmth of the nearby city. But one solitary figure walked against the blizzard, drawn onward by a promise whispered on the frozen gale. Her name was Lyra, and her steps were as light as the snowflakes that kissed her upturned face. She wasn't running from the cold, but running to it. Deeper into the heart of the storm, where the road turned treacherous and hope grew thin, hours blurred into one white tumult. Sun and sky surrendered to the gray, and the city shimmered into a half-remembered dream.
Ow!
All around her, travelers had sought haven. But Lyra walked on, guided by a purpose that burned brighter than the hearth fires she'd left behind. Then she saw, at a flicker of light against the swirling gray, a beacon carved from the heart of the storm. Hope surged through her, quickening her pace. As she drew nearer, the wind seemed to hush, as if the storm itself was holding its breath. Before her stood an ancient tower, weathered and stark against the raging sky. No other structure dared to challenge the elements here. This far north, where magic whispered in the ice-jammed rivers and spirits danced in the frozen mist, But the tower held, bound by ancient magic and guarded by the woman who waited within its shadowed halls. Lyra knew her name was Iolanthe, and that she possessed a power as old as the frost giants who once ruled these lands, a power to see through the veils that separated the mortal world from the realms of myth and legend. Drawn by tales of Iolanthe's wisdom, Lyra had braved the blizzard, seeking guidance on a path that lay shrouded in mists. As she neared the tower, the wind's whispers grew clearer, carrying secrets on their icy breath. Each gust seemed to probe her resolve, testing her purpose, but she stood firm. She had walked this far, enduring frostbite's bite and fear's icy grip. She would not falter now. With a final push, she pushed open the heavy oak door, stepping inside, leaving the howling tempest to its lonely vigil. Inside, the air was still, heavy with the scent of old magic and whispered lore. Shadows danced on the walls, and the flickering lamplight cast eerie shapes upon the books and artifacts scattered about. Seated upon a stone throne was Iolanthe, her form as still and stark as the tower itself. Her eyes, however, burned with an inner light, piercing the shadows as she turned her gaze upon Lyra. Time seemed to stretch, each second echoing in the vast silence until Iolanthe spoke, her voice like the rustling of ancient pages. "You have walked a perilous road, child. Why do you seek me out?" Lyra hesitated, the enormity of the task she'd set for herself suddenly pressing down. Yet she had come too far to turn back. Taking a deep breath, she began her tale, pouring out the hopes and fears that had driven her to this isolated tower. Iolanthe listened, her gaze unwavering, until Lyra fell silent. Then she rose from her throne, her movements fluid despite her advanced years. She glided towards a towering bookshelf, her fingers tracing the weathered spines as she sought what she needed. Finally, she drew out a thick, leather-bound volume, its pages filled with arcane symbols and cryptic verses. With a gesture, she offered it to Lyra. "This knowledge is not easily wielded, child. Are you sure you are ready?" Lyra's determination burned brightly. She accepted the book, her hands trembling slightly. "I must try. My path depends on it." A sad smile touched Iolanthé's lips. "Very well. But know this, the price of power is often steep. Are you willing to pay it?" Lyra met the old woman's gaze unflinchingly. "I am." And so began Lyra's apprenticeship, secluded within the Frost Mage's tower, where the relentless blizzard raged outside and the battle for her soul raged within. This is where our story ends, but the journey is far from over. What will Lyra discover in the ancient book? Will she be able to master its powers without losing herself? And what challenges await her on the path ahead? All of this and more will be revealed in the next chapter of The Forgotten Path. If you want to be among the first to hear the next installment, then subscribe. And remember, each like fuels our journey, guiding us through the mists of myth and legend. Comment below with your theories and predictions. Your voice echoes through The Forgotten Path and might shape the very course of Lyra's fate.